So this is the reality of the country when we really talk about technology in education, because most of the time what we said, what we understand is in the name of e-learning, in the name of technology in education, we are moving towards a lot of online things, which also need a consideration of the context in which India is being, Indian context. Because one thing what we always do is when a curriculum reform is coming up, we look forward to see to the other country and then take up whatever is happening as a good case. But I really appreciate the point which Director SCRT has brought up, that it cannot be just taken up from the other countries. Like, for example, now the moment the NEP talks about use of coding into our curriculum, the moment it comes, like everyone looks for a coding curriculum which is there in the country, and then we start using it, just trying to integrate it into our school. It's written that it can be started from third standard, but in the NEP we need to really clearly understand what it talks about technology. It doesn't give us strict instruction that use it from third standard. It can be used from third standard. So we really need to understand, whenever we are bringing a technology into our system, we need to understand certain assumptions, certain contexts in which we can apply and which we cannot really work out. And it's not that like we can't use it, but what is an alternative for it? That's one of the things that is a concern when implementing it, because we keep listening to many people. NEP tells that there is 70, let's do it. NEP says that AR, VR integration is there. So curriculum should involve AI integration. So make a chapter on AI. So sometimes we are taking the points in NEP in a very different manner, which is not really NEP talks about. NEP talks about very clear uh, recommends a clear thing that like use the potentials of technology in improving the learning teaching learning process, which will really have an impact on the quality of education. But many times that is lost. So that is one of the thing like we are trying to really focus on, though I'm not just general things I would like to bring first, and then would like to bring the essence of what NCRT is doing in this regard. And also what we found is, this is one common assumption many people have come out after COVID, is during 2 years of COVID, every teacher has started using technology. So all the e-learning is already in place. Everyone knows technology. So e-learning models can be applied. Online teaching can be encouraged. This is what we are moving ahead with. But the reality is very, very different. What we interact with teachers in the field is, people have completed online courses on online platforms during COVID because there was no face-to-face trainings. But when we go and see, they do not know how to even switch on the computer system. So that's a reality. It's not like that every teacher who has used technology during COVID has learned technology, but rather it is like on an emergency time, something that has come in the hand, they have used it, but there is a need to build the capacity of teacher to make e-learning models effective, or to support school curriculum and pedagogy in an efficient manner. So the very first context, which I really appreciate one of the speaker talking about, like the capacity building of teacher plays a very important role when in terms of making e-learning as a support system to school curriculum and pedagogy. Why? Because like in the earlier days, the way technology integration was thought about is just let's have some digital tools, like, or some hardware. There was a computer issue to all the computers, so let's start using computers. Then later there was a software issue to all the schools, so let us start using the software. Sometimes now what we feel is this is still continuing. So the curriculum recommends for an effective and an appropriate use of technology, and just not an use, it's an integration of technology, so that the curriculum and the pedagogy is supported by technology. So one is like we always like insist that don't take technology as the forerunner. Take curriculum as a forerunner. Take the pedagogy as a forerunner. More than that, take the learner as a forerunner. Because that's one of the main things that is really not found in many of the persons who are implementing. maybe even people who are coming up with content, because this is what we see when the digital content are being developed. Some of them have learned some tools, so they start developing the content. I'm interested in audio, so I start developing audio video. But the point is, they forget that why they are developing. What is the output of it? Why are to whom we are going to use this? So these kind of aspects are lost sometimes. So whenever we are talking about e-learning models, the variety of models which e-learning says, and there are types of e-learning models like which we have come across theoretically. But what we see is the theoretical models of e-learning is not in practice at many states. Even it is not, many of them are not aware of. So it's very important. We need to build the awareness, maybe like not in the theory form, because if you are studying a course on e-learning models, then theoretically people study, but even the essence of those things has to be integrated when we are taking certain transformative steps to bring technology to support curriculum and pedagogy. Now, there is a recommendation in NEP that let's move on to integrating online courses. So when we are designing the curriculum itself, this needs an integration. So when we are preparing state curriculum framework, when we are preparing the national curriculum framework, where is this particular part of it? Can this really be brought into the school system at a stretch? Or is there a certain pre-requirement to bring online courses into a particular school level? So NCERT is running online course for class 11 and 12 for past 7 years, but we see like every student doesn't need it. Sometimes students ask, why should I do an online course? Because there is a teacher who teaches me. What is the need for me to do an online course on this subject? So we always tell that it's an enrichment resource for you. But the students sometimes do not feel the need of it. That is where we forget that the e-learning should be based on the demand, and the whole process should be driven from the demand itself. There are really demands, but it's not really brought out. Like there are schools where we have lack of resources. Technology provides the opportunity, e-learning models provides the context, but it's a very clear planning, which at the state level or the national level, which we do makes a difference. So do we have really a credit transfer system? Is it going to really work? Will it be accessible to everyone? So all these questions really comes up, and we don't have an immediate solution. Because even now, like when we are offering an online course, we can't bring every child on the board because all the child do not have a digital system. And the moment we said it's an online course, they need a digital system. They need a connectivity, which we also, though we talk about infrastructure is available in every place, but we see a lot of restricted infrastructure, or there is a kind of a limited infrastructure which most of the children have. So there is a need for finding an alternative. Its e-learning model is mostly assumed to be only online, because the moment the word comes, people assume it's to be online. Very true that we plan for an online learning space, but we always need to have alternatives to have inclusivity of all the students into. So to include all the students, there is an alternative. So we have come across the success stories of Kerala, like during the COVID time, how all the other parameters have been used. Like all other medias have been used. Those who don't have online, TV was available. TV is not there, radio was available. Nothing is available. Let the children groups were made available. It has become a success story that it has got extended. So how do we bring that blend is a very important thing. At a higher education level, they have come up with models of blended learning, but still for the school education level, when we go through the guideline of blended education, it has come for the higher education level, but it is not as it is applicable for the school education level. So there is a need for a thought process that has to go into the theories which are available for e-learning and blended learning into an actionable point into our school system. That may not be same for all the states, that may not be same for all the districts, but there is a need to think about it. There is a need to bring that as part of our recommendations into our curriculum framework. So that is what has been tried out when we were writing about the focus group paper on educational technology at the national level. So that we try to give some emphasis on how the curriculum structure itself should include it. Many places we see this as an additional skill. Like, no, e-learning is not taught as a part of the pedagogy, but it is seen as an additional skill. Like, okay, like let's run the science course, but let it run also as a 1 hour course to learn technology. But it's not the thing that learning technology separately is going to help, because that doesn't bring the context to a child. So it's very important to bring the context of the child into the picture, where they will be able to understand how this learning, e-learning is really enhancing their learning process, their the complete assessment process and everything. So the models are very clear. Like, no, the e-learning models are very clear, because it talks about having an integrated approach. Because this funnel model is something which many times we don't think about it, but we don't teach our, like when we do a capacity building from NCERT for teachers to use technology in education, teaching, learning process. We don't teach the names of the models or names of the theories, but we tell them like, okay, now you wanted to develop a digital content, then how do you go about? Why do you start with? Where do you start with? What makes your selection of a particular media? So that is basically built on the theoretical learning, but practically it is designed such that the capacity building will emphasize on that. But to the reality, the moment we start training this at the end of the session, end of the training, what we listen as a feedback is teachers are also only interested in learning tools. They will say, Madam, give practice to more of tools, but don't give us importance to the real understanding of what we do. So there is a need for a change in the mindset of people itself. E-learning is not just a tool, it has to be completely embedded into the system. It has to be embedded, curriculum has to be embedded into it, and pedagogy has to use e-learning as part of. But this understanding, until and otherwise we have built it up, e-learning may not be a supportive system. It will be a standalone system which may have impact, may not have impact, may have a limited impact. So it's a very important point that we need to have a mindset change in the user's perspective. And this COVID time also has made children to believe in e-learning. So everyone has started believing in e-learning, irrespective of whether they have a digital infrastructure, whether they know about it, whether they have awareness about it. But still, all of the students have believed in e-learning. This is like a double-edged sword. This belief is really a double-edged sword, which we need to be very careful about, because it also has its own impact in the school education system. Lot of teachers are facing problem in the classroom, real classroom at the ground level, that they are not able to make students be part of the classrooms, because the students believe that everything can be learned through internet. E-learning is nothing related to class. It's something to go into Google Chrome or just to go into anything on a browser and then just start doing it. This is something, a very wrong assumption that has happened with students on a large scale. Many of the researches that has happened during COVID time on the impact of technology use has brought out this idea that the kind of mindset the children have built it up right now, it's in a wavering stage. We need to set right it and make them believe and understand also that e-learning is not just working on a browser, and learning online is not just working on a browser, but it is connected to the learning system itself. I'm not saying that it has to be restricted into the four walls, but like as Krupali ji has already pointed out, there is a need for a very systematic planning so that there is no misleading of students. And even the safety and security concerns come in, which is not very much dealt with. The moment we talk e-learning and taking the support of e-learning or technology to improve concerns, the safety part comes in. Actually, when we read through the complete NEP, there is a mention of school safety. But what does school safety means? Most of them, please only think about the school safety in terms of the physical parameter. But there is a need, we need to bring about this digital space as well as a safety space. When we talk about implementation of NEP into curriculum, like when we are translating the NEP recommendations into curriculum, the school safety is taken care, but the parameter, one of the parameter under school safety to be taken care as a digital space as well as part of the school safety. This is one of the things, it's a concern as at the national level as well, which we keep doing a lot of activities around it, which we insist on it. But now there are a lot of states who have got this as an eye opener that they need to work out on it. But there are comparatively out of 36 states, the number is not so appreciable because many states have not still taken up that initiative of taking care of safety security in the digital space. When we want to make e-learning to support the curriculum and pedagogy, this is also need to be taken care. And we cannot deny about the digital divide in terms of infrastructure or in terms of competencies, in terms of accessibility. Still we have challenges in this area. So a careful planning is required when we really wanted to take this to be an effective part. So some of the recommendations which are coming up is like building up an infrastructure in a school level. It's not going to happen everything overnight. It's going to be a challenging part. So instead of having us ownership of the infrastructure, there can be a shared infrastructure. How can there be a service, infrastructure as a service rather than infrastructure as a complete, what you say, like as a ownership of the infrastructure. So there is need for infrastructure as a service rather than what we are really practicing it now, so that the digital divide can be addressed. And also the digital divide can be addressed in multiple other ways. The one of the very appreciable part which really became a big news is like during COVID, the way the people have started, like no contributing their own. Like I have two TVs, let me contribute one TV to other person. I have two laptops, let me contribute. I have an old mobile, let me contribute. The community participation. E-learning cannot be successful until and otherwise community comes in. It's not just an interaction between a teacher and the student, but it's an interaction of the community as well. Because it's going to be very challenging to build the capacity of every teacher only from through a training purpose. It's not going to be possible just do like 10 days training, 5 days training, because taking a teacher out of the school is also going to be a challenge. So the alternative is do online training, do online courses which can enable the teachers to learn. So one of the initiative we started is like to have continuously every month, last week, an online training. But what we still see is, though we write to states, though we send messages to everyone, hardly the maximum participation was only 30,000 teachers. All of us know that there isn't lakhs of teachers we have, but still 30,000 is a maximum number we could reach in the 1.5 years in the last 1 year. So that talks about that everyone is not having the readiness to come. There is no acceptance. So these are some of the key factors which we need to factor in when we are designing curriculum, so that the e-learning becomes a support system rather than not another setup or another idea into a system, but not really functional. So there is a need to work out like how are we going to really build this readiness and acceptance for going ahead. The acceptance level must have increased during COVID, maybe from 0 to 10, but only making this 10% of increase in the acceptance level or readiness may not really help to become a support system. We are in a very sprawling state. So whenever we talk about this SMAR model, we always relate to ourselves. We are just in the first level of the SMAR model, the substitution level. We were using text, we were using a board, the blackboard. Now let's start using PowerPoint. We were using something as a storytelling. Now let's use it as a recorded storytelling video. We are still in that level. So if we really wanted to bring e-learning as really an efficient one of the idea into it, then we need to really move to the next level of going to the last level of reforming and changing it. And until and otherwise we go to that level, it's not going to really become a support system. So these are some of the challenges which we really look forward, and we are working out at the national level, but where the states are also working out to address, because we are in an infancy stage, to be frank, like because We are all having energized textbook. We are happy about it. We are moving towards e-learning system, but the energized textbooks, we are at a level 2, wherein some of the countries have moved to the level 20. Right? So, like this, wherever we compare with other country, we may be in an infancy stage. There is no need for comparison to jump to that ladder, but we are having a gradual growth. We may need to work out seriously, systematically in our context and come out with guidelines, come out with the understanding, practical and apply applications of things, so that how really e-learning models can support the school. There is a need for such guidelines. So this is something which is actually initiated at the national level, that there is a need to come out with the e-learning guidelines for school education. So already a committee has been formed where we need to really address and work on it. So it's going to be, we are going to really go a long way in this area to make e-learning a support system, but working together makes a lot of sense.